And you're welcome back to Off the Ball Saturday on News Talk. John Duggan with you 3 to 5. This is Football Saturday. Remember, our coverage on Off the Ball brought to you by Sky. Watch Man United versus Everton in the Women's Super League this Sunday live only on Sky Sports. You can text us 53106. Tweet us at Off the Ball. We're streaming the conversation as well. You can listen on News Talk, watch us on the Off the Ball digital and social channels. For Periscope on Twitter at Off the Ball, YouTube, Facebook, and on the OTB Sports app for iOS and Android. Search OTB Sports in your app store to download it if you haven't already. Joined from the Aviva Stadium by the Irish Independent's Dan McDonnell. And we're also got in studio here Stuey Byrne, the former League of Ireland winner with Byrne, and the broadcaster and journalist Johnny Ward. And Stuey, I'm admiring your Dynamo Kiev jersey.
This is my Dynamo Kiev jersey, John.
Solidarity,
yeah. I've been tending to wear it since the start of the war. Obviously, any sort of football-related public stuff I do. Just tended to put it on.
A fair play.
Yeah, it's like as it's hit everybody, the war. It's been devastating, and the reaction from people has been fantastic. So I just feel I need to wear it. It kind of attaches me a little bit to it, So this is the jersey I swapped. I think Dan actually might have been at this game.
I think he was,
when we played against Dynamo Kiev. Yeah, Artem Milevsky. He was the skipper. He was a bit like Ukrainian Ibrahimovic. This guy. He was a proper,
I think Dan might have a story about you actually goading him about his prediction that time.
Proper player.
When was this now? Was this with Shelburne?
This was with Drogheda.
Drogheda.
Yeah, a game we probably should have won. Probably should have knocked him out. I had a go at Dan, did I? What was it?
I think his prediction.
He didn't give us a chance. Is that right?
No. He might, if Dan is there, he might be able to furnish us on the details.
Dan, are you there?
I think it was. I am here. If you can hear me, yeah.
You can hear you, Dan.
Yeah. No, it was in the hotel. I think a day before the game, and I just remember you shouting down at me in the distance. You're just talking rubbish down there or something. I mean, it was good natured. Until I subsequently heard, and Ollie Cattle confirmed it, and Shane Robinson has confirmed it, that apparently some prediction I'd put in the paper had got mentioned by Paul Doolan in the pre-match team talk.
That is true. That's true. But was that me that shouted at you, Dan? I didn't think.
Well, it was. I don't listen. It was actually, you weren't actually goading me. It was just more good natured, just shouting in the general direction. But there was one or two players that were a little bit more pumped up, I think. But from listening to Ollie during the week, I think the manager might have put a goal or two extra onto the prediction that I'd actually given.
Oh, right.
I think I think there was a mention of 5. I've never predicted an Irish team to concede 5 in Europe anywhere. I'm always too much of an optimist. But I did fancy Kiev to win that game, maybe 3-1 or 4-1, and was happy to be wrong. But so I'm glad you can confirm that it did actually get mentioned in the team talk of some description.
You got mentioned, and even back then you were a star in the making. you were on the radar.
He's still a star in the making.
a pest in the making. A pest in the making, more to the point. Yeah.
What's it like down there, Dan, at the moment?
It's very quiet, John. It's 2 hours out from kick-off. The Irish team were just out for a little bit of a walk. And management, not even all of the team came out. I was just looking at James McLean and Will Keane, who both play for Wigan. McLean was pointing out something to Will Keane sort of in the stadium. Now, Keane did play here before against Portugal off the bench, but he's still relatively new to the place, I guess. So you're wondering, is there any meaning in that, in the sense that maybe Will Keane might be in for a little bit more involvement? I think he will play more across these 2 games. I'm not sure if he'll start today, but I suspect we're going to be seeing plenty of him across these next 2 games for sure.
And a full house expected there, Dan, as well.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it was. It's certainly. I mean, I got down here so early you couldn't necessarily pick up the buzz, but I actually was in town early this morning, and there was quite a few Ireland shirts around the place, and people with no jackets. They were clearly out for the day, if you know what I mean. And I mean, it is sort of glorious weather, and it does sort of remind me. It was like I think tomorrow was the year anniversary of the Luxembourg game here, which of course was the game in the empty stadium and was such a low point for Stephen Kenny and a grim night. I think, Stuey, you might have been in the stadium that night too.
When you were driven to wine, wasn't it? You were saying you're going to go home and have some wine.
I was driven to, and I haven't got off.
Yeah. But I think, to think that it's the same time of year and we're going to have a full house today or very close to a full house today, and there's a completely different feel around the place. There's sort of a feel of enthusiasm, and to be fair, this game today, there's a certain importance in maintaining the momentum and putting on a show when there's such optimism, and it would be great. But in some respects, I would have been making this point in the paper today. It's sort of like the least pressure Kenny has had on a game in the last while. You know, he's got his contract and every game is important, but maybe this one is sort of a free hit really and see how it goes. I think the likes of even Lithuania on Tuesday, okay, you're expected to win that game, and then you have Nations League games from that point onwards. So this is maybe the one afternoon where to a degree he can enjoy the fact he's got the opportunity and have a go at what is still going to be a good Belgian side, even if it's not the best Belgian side.
Is the style of football, lads, why the fans are voting with their feet and turning up at these matches in big numbers, do you think?
Yeah, partly. I think he's put faith in young players as well, that I think the nation, is kind of really wrapping the flag around. But I think, whether you were a League of Ireland fan, whether you had no interest in League of Ireland, whether you're a Premier League fan, which is the majority of people, or wherever you were, you're used to watching football. But I've had this debate with you, JD, about your love of football, and you want to see football at the top level. You want to see, the best players in the world. You want to see football played the right way. And I didn't derive much enjoyment from watching Ireland for actually a long time, really. Mick McCarthy's reign was better in terms of the way we played than Giovanni Trapattoni or Martin O'Neill. But at the same time, I think Irish fans themselves got fed up with the way we were playing. And Stephen Kenny was bold enough to say that we can be better than that. And I also think people have bought into his humility and the fact that, he has a kind of almost like an air of maybe shyness about him, or something a little bit enigmatic that marks him out as someone who's kind of, he's happy to go with his beliefs, despite the fact that, as Dan said this time 12 months ago, we were really in the nadir, and Nathan Murphy said yesterday he couldn't see us coming back from that, which is probably true of a lot of people. And I think people have really taken to the story of the kind of recovery since, the performances of certain players and so on, and the fact that we are reasonably good to watch now, after years of being pigeonholed as being rubbish to watch and being all about a bit of, put your body about and, win headers and show that Irish spirit. I don't think you can get away with that anymore. I think people were fed up with that, and it's really encouraging to see our underage teams play a brand of football now that would have been anathema to the O'Neill and Trapattoni eras. And you had Trapattoni basically and O'Neill telling the players that they weren't good enough to play a certain style. Kenny has done the exact opposite.
How do you feel then 12 months on, Stuey?
Yeah, I feel good. I still think it's certainly complacency is something we just can't afford, to be quite honest. But I don't think that will happen. In fact, I think the Stephen signing his new contract will now, I think it will solidify the camp, the players. I think a lot has happened in the last couple of years, and I just following on what Johnny said there. I think I agree with everything he said. I think there's the brand of football is important to people. I think people. The world is kind of changing a little bit. I think we're becoming a bit more socially, morally aware of things, and I think our threshold for just pumping money into these big name managers or whatever, people are just sick to death of it, and there's a reconnection now, I feel, with the Irish people, the game, its manager, because they look on, you look at Stephen, and as Johnny rightly said, he's got humility. He's quite a humble man. He almost comes across as being, for want of a better phrase, working class. He's of the people, and people can connect with him. The players connect with him because there isn't this big ego now in telling them what to do or telling them they're not good enough for this, or when I was a player, I was much better than you lot, and that kind of thing. And that plays on the mind of players. It really does. I can tell you from being a player. In order for players to perform, they have to be comfortable in their environment, but they also have to kind of almost feel like, but I'm the best player in my position, and that's why I'm here. And I think Stephen does that. He enables players to feel comfortable, to feel positive, to be confident, to try things, because he doesn't. His management style is not to look down on you and tell you what you should be doing. Because when I was a great player, that's what we did. It's much different. I think he gets you to come out of your skin a little bit, and and to think for yourself and to try new things and just to be confident and be a unified group. That's what I see in this Ireland team. I'm never, I know there's this constant talk of great players and we don't have the Robbie Keanes and the Damien Duffs and all that. It's the game is different now. There are.
Do you need them in international football? Look at North Macedonia beating
Italy.
Well,
look at Iceland even. And look
or
at
Greece winning the Euros.
Exactly, Greece winning the Euro. Greece winning. And it's funny you brought that up, John. I was thinking about it today. That changed football for me, international football and probably club football, because off the back of that, you had Mourinho's Porto, very similar style of football, and it told us that you don't need to have these great players that can win games for you. What you need a unified group that are all pulling the same way, that are all passionate about the team they play for, and we can go on and on and on and on. And that hasn't been there. There's been a fracture in the Ireland team, and there's been a fracture in football in the country for the last 20, 30 years. Right through to the hierarchy, right down, even through the grassroots football. And that's being mended now. We have a long way to go, but it certainly helps when you look at the international team, because they can be very inspiring for everybody. Everyone looks up to the international team because club football is different. There's pride in the international team. There's no. Money's not at stake, it's pure pride, and so therefore you've got all the coaches in the country, you've got young kids, boys and girls, they're all watching in on this, and they get inspired by the international team, and that feeds through the game. And so when it's toxic at the top, it goes through the system.
Yeah, it was interesting when Jack Charlton sadly passed away, Dan. Jason McAteer came on and he said that he couldn't wait. They couldn't wait to get over here to join up with the Irish squad and play for the Republic of Ireland team. Do you get the sense with the players that there's that kind of buzz around now at the moment?
I would like to think so, John. It's sort of that. I suppose that you hear these stories all the time about the great camaraderie of the Charlton era and the great time the players had, but in a way as well too. And I think Stephen Kenny would be of this mindset to some degree as well. We shouldn't be afraid to sort of celebrate the past, but you can't also live in it as well too, and sort of have to make some new memories and maybe things won't be the same.
Sorry, we have an issue with your line there, Dan. We'll try and get you back up, but I'm kind of interested, Johnny. I was kind of reading a lot about Belgium in 2000 when they hosted the Euros with the Netherlands, and it all went wrong for them. And they built this over 20 years, haven't they? What they have now, and it's going to be. I don't know whether you can make a comparison between the two, but they've really got their structures right. You could almost argue recently that Belgium have underachieved at international level, given the talent they have.
Yeah, I think they've been a lot of people's kind of favourite team in recent years, with obviously De Bruyne, Hazard, and players like that. The players obviously that won't be there today, and I guess that's the potential banana skin element of today, JD, is that Ireland are playing a second string team, and if we were beaten 3-0 or something like that, it would be a bit of a knock. As much as Dan is downplaying it and saying it's kind of a bit of a free hit for the Irish team, I still think there's a bit of expectation there that after the Portugal and Serbia games.
Is there a honeymoon phase, if there was one, that's over now?
I think it's gone now.
I think it needs to be over.
Yeah,
as well.
I think Kenny said this as well, that it's about results from now on. I mean, he did get. You'd have to say, when you look at the likes of Brian Kerr and other managers, he did get a reasonable amount of time as manager for a lot to go wrong. I mean, it took Andorra for a team to finally, succumb to Ireland. We were poor in a lot of games. That Luxembourg game, was awful. It was really, really bad. And you'd have to say 12 months ago, it wasn't even apparent that there was an amazing football philosophy change. So, in fairness to the FAI, they stuck with Stephen Kenny. I think managers nowadays, JD, I think they're not given enough time, full stop. I think everyone is in a rush to think that the new manager is going to change things. So I think he's gotten that time. But Belgium, just getting back to the point, the quality of the team today that they have, their second team in effect, will show the standards that we have to step up to. And they're you know, Belgium itself is a slightly complex nation. It's not one of these like really straightforward nations where everyone is madly patriotic and they're all kind of coming from the, you know, singing from the same hymn sheet. It's
two countries.
It's two countries, kind of a little bit like Switzerland, whereas it's you know, it's not like your straightforward Republic of Ireland kind of passionate crowd that we'll get today. So they had to kind of they would have had maybe obstacles to overcome that other countries didn't, but they've built an amazing football team. And let's not forget as well the Anthony Barry story. You know, what did he say? It was a no-brainer to leave Ireland to go to Belgium, which I think could be deemed a little bit kind of, if not offensive, a little bit annoying for us to hear. So there's that narrative as well.
But it's not the truth.
It probably is the truth, but like the Ireland job was basically a part-time job that he had on top of the Chelsea role, and I think he was very much appreciated by the Irish setup. So I think how he and Kenny kind of embrace today, or the chat that they will have, will be interesting, because, you know, Kenny has had I don't think anyone could predict, whatever about COVID and you know, Videogate and all this other stuff, like nobody could predict the amount of assistants or goalkeeping coaches or opposition analysts that he's lost. It's incredible in this space of time. And Anthony Barry was obviously the most recent one, so that adds a bit of spice to it. And ultimately, I think it's 15 degrees out there. You know, I went for a walk earlier. It feels like 20 degrees. The crowd are going to be in unbelievably boisterous, good form for this game. It feels like summer. It's a big nation coming to Dublin. The last game that we had was against Portugal at home in terms of a home crowd. It was a brilliant atmosphere that night. And the place is going to be heaving tonight. And I think that's the big difference from 12 months ago. Luxembourg was playing basically in a ghost town, you know, of players who are lacking confidence and you know, of a Luxembourg team who probably grew into the game. Not going to be like that tonight.
Yeah, it's it feels like 20 years ago, to be honest.
It does.
It feels like 20 years ago, that Luxembourg.
Well, it's crazy. I mean, everything feels like it was like 5 years ago. Like, you know, when you consider the couple of years we've had, it's. But we have to get back on the horse, you know, and we have to get going now. And yeah, the Luxembourg one, absolutely, it was definitely the bottom of the pit. Purely because of the performance more than anything. We were just so lethargic in that game, and I remember the game, it was nobody at it, and oh God, it was very difficult to see what way it was going to go. But to give credit to Stephen, he I think he managed it as best he could. Well, I think he managed it in the only way he knows how, and again, it was back to this. It was this humility thing, is people gave him a chance, John. They did. Yeah, people are looking at this now, really, and they get it, you know. And I've often said this about the modern day football supporter. They're so well informed now. It's almost like they could all be nearly managers themselves, because the game is analysed so much. I feel like, you know, I'm just you know, I know I would have played the game, but I feel you know, that anyone out there could just be as well informed as I am, because there's great commentary on the game. So the point I'm trying to get to is you can't pull the wool over people's eyes anymore. You know, you can't. It doesn't work. So people know what they're watching. They know what they're looking at. They know if the tactics aren't right. They know if the system's not right. They know if players are underperforming. So they can be quite critical. They can be quite constructively critical. I know they might articulate it a little bit differently. You might get the this and that. But
so, but if Cavan football walks like a duck and talks like a duck,
yeah, it probably is a duck. Yeah, but I think we have to remember as well that this whole idea that we're going through this kind of structural change. We're trying to change the way we play. We're trying to change our whole football ethos. It didn't necessarily come from the FAI. It came from Stephen. You know, I don't ever remember, and because of what happened in the FAI, John Delaney moving on, Jonathan Hill coming in, there never really seemed to me to be this brief that yes, Stephen is in place to do this, to bring it through youth, to change the way we play football, so on, so on. It always felt like Stephen was he was saying, well, I'm in this job to do this because this is what I'm doing. And he had to almost explain himself to the pub.
Well, it was a groundswell of support behind him anyway.
Oh no, absolutely there was.
But I suppose
he was never backed by the FAI saying, "No, Stephen's there to do this."
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
If you look at the appointments under John Delaney, would say Steve Staunton, Brian Kerr, Mick McCarthy.
But Brian Kerr wasn't appointed by by John Duggan.
Sorry, after that. Sorry. So Steve Staunton, Martin O'Neill, Mick McCarthy, and Trapattoni. I mean, it wasn't. And as much as Stephen Kenny was obviously part of the last kind of.
I think Martin O'Neill, to be fair, and Roy Keane did well for a time.
But the point is, there was no deviation from we need to get to the next tournament, because basically the FAI needs the money, but that's the bottom line. There was nothing to do with football philosophy whatsoever, and. It's hard if you're brought up as an Irish player at any level and you have, like, since the Jack Charlton days, almost, several years, 90% of the time where Ireland are basically very bad to watch relative to other teams. And like that does seep into, the national sort of discourse and the national character. And Stephen Kenny was on the record as saying that he didn't necessarily go to see Ireland play under Jack Charlton because he didn't like the style of football. And that was a bold thing to say because Jack Charlton was basically a national saint at that time. But like, if you watch back some of the Ireland games under Jack Charlton, I mean, we were awful to watch. That was successful, so that was deemed okay going forward. And Stephen Kenny, I remember speaking to him when he got the job, and the one thing he was saying was like, I really, really want to change the philosophy. I want to change how we're seen and how we play. And it's all right saying if you tell a donkey to run like a horse, he's not going to run like a horse if he's a donkey. If you tell a player he's great and he can do this or that and he's not capable of it, he's not going to be able to do it. But Stephen Kenny has brought out performances in the likes of Robinson and Hendrick, who aren't necessarily doing their club level and who had no relationship with him necessarily before that shows that his man management is working. And I think that's important as well. And people will go there tonight knowing that Ireland will try to pass the ball. And that's actually a fundamental difference from where we're at.
Speaking about horses there, Aidan McGuinness has had a huge winner at Maidan on Dubai World Cup Day. A Case of You 14-1 shot in a Group 1 over 6 furlongs with Ronan Whelan riding. So well done. We'll also have the results of the Lincoln at Doncaster at 3:35 and at 4:16. Dan, if we go back to you there at the Aviva Stadium. We were speaking about Anthony Barry there. There was a new coach in town. John Eustace is his name.
Yeah, there is, John. I suppose it's a sort of a similar style appointment in the sense that it's someone who's working at a club. It's a part-time gig sort of attached to their day job. I mean, he's seems to be well regarded. He was meant to become the manager of Swansea last year, ducked out of it at the last minute for whatever reason. But the fact that he was being selected suggests, he's well regarded. I mean, there's some highly regarded people around who can't get a championship job, and he was being offered one. He previously managed, he had a sort of a respectable career between the Premier League and the Championship, but then had to drop down to Kidderminster Harriers to start his career in management and coaching. They were sort of nicknamed the non-league Barcelona by another coach, which probably suggests how they might have played. It seemed like, I think, Stephen Kenny from the start said he had a sort of defined role for all of the staff. I mean, the Damien Duff one initially was to be very active on the coaching. I think he liked the idea of Duff working at Celtic, so he was working week to week on top of trends and what was going on in the club game, actively involved. And Barry took that position, maybe brought it up a notch because he was working at Chelsea, so he was obviously operating at the sharp end of the game. And then they've turned to John Eustace now, who's been QPR assistant for a number of years and is actively involved. They play a similar system to Ireland. That's no coincidence in the context of this. This is, I think they wanted the least hassle. I mean, I was making this point, I think, during the week, that, I mean, if you go for someone like John Eustace, similar to someone like Anthony Barry, you risk losing them, and then more commentary about, this is sort of he keeps losing staff. I mean, I wouldn't be remotely offended by Anthony Barry saying it's a no-brainer that you had a chance to be with Ireland this year or be with Belgium in the World Cup this year, and I would be very surprised if in 12 months' time Anthony Barry hasn't taken a club job somewhere. So he probably wouldn't have been around for the full Euros journey with Ireland anyway. So if he can drain the most out of his time, sort of double jobbing and be involved in a World Cup, I wouldn't be offended by that. I think it's the truth, but I wouldn't find it particularly offensive. I think it's fair comment. And with John Eustace, it is possible he could be offered a job, on his own in the next 6 months and 9 months, and Kenny's back there again. But I suppose he's deemed that preferable than going for someone who maybe isn't wanted by anyone else.
And Jimmy Dunn as well will have some insight on him because he plays with QPR.
Yeah, Jimmy Dunn would. Jeff Hendrick is on loan at QPR at the moment too. Dunn now isn't in the matchday squad today. Neither is Conor Ronan, which I wouldn't say is particularly surprising. You might see them on Tuesday. But yeah, no, Jimmy Dunn would have a degree of insight. But I think it's more so the fact that he's actively involved, in the game. He's got a reasonable pedigree. I know there would be probably different opinions on this. Stephen Kenny during the week had to clarify previous comments he made about English coaches, because he probably in the past would have been quite unflattering about the prevailing mindset in England. But I think he's acknowledged there's a new wave of English coaches coming through, probably in tandem with the new wave and that English international football is viewed now. You see the quality of player they're producing, and with that they're producing a good quality of young coach, and that's the way that Kenny decided to go with this appointment. I mean, losing Barry is a blow. We can't sugarcoat it. He's probably one of the most sought after young minds in the game at the moment, and in hindsight it was great to get him. But I think, that's very easy. It's very, Eustace seems to have a good reputation because he's been offered jobs, but I suppose in time you'll begin to hear feedback of what players think. From the start, you heard it was very good with Barry, and I think that was even one of the positives coming out of this window last year when you had the Luxembourg low and all that went with it. Barry apparently still made a good impression, and then that followed through into the summer, and things have sort of steadily improved from there.
Yeah, he played with Gary Breen and Lee Carsley in the Coventry team in the Premier League in 2001. I was checking that up.
Robbie Keane as well.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the previous year. And coaches, the importance of coaches, Stuey.
Worth their weight in gold. They almost have to. It's like they're there to kind of drive the energy on the training pitch, and balance is hugely important here. And I know, from what I know of Stephen, he'll definitely try to get that right. I don't think he likes to have people who are too aggressive, too loud, too boisterous. You get all sorts of personalities in football, and certain personalities suit certain situations. But in this camp, I think he likes his, he likes to be, he likes his kind of assistants to be, to be quiet, get on with their business, drive energy, that kind of stuff. But coaches, the best coaches I would have worked with are the ones that are just, I don't know how they do it. They just turn up in the morning and they're just full of energy and they lift the spirit of the team. They get people going. They're able to spot if somebody's maybe a little bit down. They can go over, have a quiet word, get them going in real time during training, that kind of stuff. Because in reality you're dealing with 20, 25 different personalities who all have all sorts of things going on in their life, and they turn up and for training, and you got to manage people, deal with people. But
say with Barry and Kenny though, for example, there has to be a dynamic as well where I'm the manager. I don't want to be undermined by you either, in the sense of if the players are really impressed by you, I guess, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, well, of course, and that comes down to when Stephen has the choice of picking his coach, so he'll obviously go through the interview process or whatever, and he'll do his homework, but ultimately he's the manager. He has to, and he'll let them know that, But I think he would have done a lot of work in the background on what this guy is like. There's nothing from my experience in football, I couldn't stand the loud guys, the guys that just wouldn't shut up, and the accent and everything was and it just. It was just off-putting. You don't, and it suits different. I've been in different dressing rooms where, the coach was nearly the best buddies with everybody. This kind of stuff. Almost short of going out for a pint with them after the match at the weekend, all this kind of thing. I couldn't take that, because I think. There has to be a barrier there between you and the coach. There has to be kind of a trust as well, and the dynamic of a football team can be it can be quite not fractured, but there can be little groups where at times the players need to feel like they're together outside of the manager now, by the way, you know, they're the 11. We're the 11 people going onto the pitch. We need to, during that 90 minutes, we need to be together here, okay? You know, we and then
we're the soldiers.
We're the soldiers, exactly. You know, there's a dynamic there, and then there's other times where it's everyone together. Maybe it's in a training situation, and it changes. It's fluid, always fluid, and the best teams can do that. They can change and they can adapt and react to different situations. But ultimately, you always feel like you have to be able to trust the manager. You have to be able to trust the coach. And when it gets to a scenario when you feel like a coach he doesn't have your back, or you feel like he might be saying things back to the manager about this and that, that's a toxic. You know,
that's what when I hear this. I hear this at Manchester United. I think they're coaching the last 2 years.
Exactly.
Whereas when you think about the 1999 team and Steve McLaren working under Ferguson, Kyrgios then subsequently.
That's what ultimately what happens when trust goes out of a group of play. It just falls apart. It falls asunder. Like, you know, and it's you can't get it back. It's that simple. Like, I think Stephen puts an awful lot of work into getting his backroom team right. I know that. I just know that from even dealing with him in the early days.
We had Dean Kiley on OTB AM last year as well, and you can just tell that he's just a great influence around the place. And if you've a good bunch of lads that the players,
David Ford as well.
David Ford, and like he's kind of the mindfulness things, but like there's no way Stephen Kenny would bring in Eustace if there were any suggestion he was going to be an asshole or anything like that, because I think the players enjoy playing for them, and like you want to satisfy your boss if your boss is good for you and good to you, and I think they've a very good team there, and that's very important considering how many people they've lost.
53106, does Stuey Byrne still shout at Stephen Kenny after games, says Barry in Terranure.
There's always one, isn't there? There's always one. No, that was a once off.
We have footage of that.
I think we've done that before, haven't we? FAI Ireland squad are now full of players that make up the numbers of their clubs. We no longer have any elite players, magicians or game changers. The underage sides are full of talent, but sad to say no Irish players are playing and dominating at the highest level anymore. Considering how little time Kenny's had to implement his principles of play, he's doing an astonishing job with these players. There's no one better to do this than him. Let's hope some of the younger lads can push on to the highest competitive levels, says one of our texters. Cahill in Cork says, looking forward to seeing Anthony Barry stamp in Belgium today, a world-class coach for Chelsea that Ireland will miss, on 53106. Dan, what are the other storylines going into this? Mark Sykes, I think, is an interesting story, doesn't he?
Yeah, Sykes is definitely a fascinating one. Aidan Fitzmaurice did a very good piece on him in the Independent today. He was up meeting his dad during the week. His dad was shot in 1992 in that attack on the Sean Graham bookmakers. And I suppose it's quite politically active off the back of his experiences, because I think Sykes' uncle would have passed away in that attack too. I mean, he is the first Belfast player to play for Ireland in 76 years. So there's massive sort of symbolism there, I suppose. I mean, he is another one who did appear to be on the Northern Ireland boat, but you hear the family story, and I think he's a fluent Gaeilgeoir, and you can understand why Mark Sykes' attachment would be to playing for the Republic of Ireland, and anyone who travels with the Ireland team regularly would know you would hear a lot of Belfast voices. You know, you'd be a Belfast supporters group and stuff that you would see everywhere. So you'd imagine for them, someone like Mark Sykes being involved is very exciting, and he's a good player.
Oxford,
I played for Oxford in League One, so again, you know, a sort of a late developer. He'd gone across from the Irish League. He's a box-to-box midfielder who has been playing wing-back recently for Oxford, but I think Kenny sees him more so as someone playing further forward. In a way, maybe capitalising from Jamie McGrath not being in this squad. You just get the sense that Kenny maybe sees him as one who could be in that front three, maybe similar to Jason Knight, maybe as a link between midfield and attack. So I think he's definitely one to look out for. I think that you could see quite a settled Ireland team today relative to maybe some of the games in the autumn. But I think if there's going to be any sort of bolters or sort of people who come into consideration who haven't been involved much, as I mentioned Will Keane earlier, I think Sykes is another that Kenny seems to really rate. And I think there's scope for a midfielder in that position to get some minutes here.
Okay, Dan McDonnell there at the Aviva Stadium, Stuey, Byrne in studio with Johnny Ward as well. We're building up to Ireland against Belgium. Kick off at 5 o'clock here on Off the Ball Saturday on News Talk. We're back after this.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky. All the football you love in one place. Across Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports.
And you're welcome back to Off the Ball Saturday here on News Talk. John Duggan with you 3 to 5. Building up to Ireland against Belgium with Johnny Ward and Stuey, Byrne in studio. And Nathan Murphy now joining Dan McDonnell at the Aviva Stadium. Nathan, how are you?
Afternoon, John.
What are you looking forward to most about today?
Well, whatever I was looking forward to most, what's excited me most so far, John, was when I opened the match programme. We're celebrating 100 years of the FAI today, and they've invited over any amount of legends. I know John Giles is here. I met Brian Kerr, who for so long was persona non grata at this stadium around the FAI, who was specially invited for the 100-year celebrations. And I opened up the programme, which is looking wonderful. We are 100 on the front. An ode to our league, John, by Johnny Ward. And I'll give you the first line.
He's working for the FAI.
He's working for the FAI yet again. There's literally nobody, not since the John Delaney era has somebody made so much money from the FAI as Johnny Ward has in recent months. He says,
I can't tell
even
you
more
how
colourful off the pitch life as well.
I think the listeners, I think the listeners and those who don't get here and don't get the programme deserve to get Johnny's opening for his ode to the League of Ireland. Kurt Cobain loved the journey to fame, but fame made him deeply unhappy. And one wonders in time, will today's die-hard League of Ireland fan pine for the days when it was a cult experience?
I wrote that on. I was supposed to have that written last week. Completely forgot about it. It was due for Wednesday, then Friday. Completely forgot about it. Then I was texted Monday. Any sign of that piece? And I replied, "Oh, geez, I totally forgot. I presume it's too late." And he said, "No, if you can lash it out now." So I wrote it in about 20 minutes.
It shows.
Yeah, there you go. Kurt Cobain.
Never mind, John.
He's gone there. Well, I'm not quite sure what I'm most looking forward to today, because it is a sort of strange afternoon, and quite often you can come to the Aviva Stadium for competitive games and it feels a little bit dead around and there's not a huge excitement and build-up. But today, it's a friendly. Belgium aren't bringing their strongest side yet. Maybe it's the sunshine and it's the most beautiful spring day in Dublin. There's thousands of people buzzing around the city from early on, all in their Ireland jerseys, that it feels big. And I'll be interested to see whether that's reflected on the pitch in that sort of first 20 minutes that we've seen for decades from Ireland in friendlies, where it gets quite slow quite quickly, it becomes quite turgid, the crowd become frustrated, they lose a little bit of interest, or whether actually they can play off the 50,000 or so that are here and treat this like a Nations League game or like something that means and has importance.
Yeah, because I was saying earlier, and I think Johnny may be slightly misrepresented it. When I say it's a free hit, I'm not saying it's a case of like if you lose 3-0 or 4-0, it's absolutely grand. I think it's more so in terms of the feeling around the build-up, that it's not that mad tension in the air that some contract issue hinges on it. So it means that in a way there's a certain freedom there to approach the game positively, which I think has always been the Kenny philosophy anyway. But still, I'm sure it would have hung over him a bit in the autumn, the scenario. But I think maybe now, hopefully, this is a slightly different feeling. We might have some teams, do we?
Yeah, I do just have the team news in the last couple of seconds, and it's as expected. I think as myself and yourself spoke about yesterday on the show, Johnny, and as Dan McDonnell predicted in the Saturday Indo today. Caoimhín Kelleher is in goal. Seamus Coleman captains the side in that back three of Coleman, Duffy and Egan. Matt Doherty and James McLean are the wing backs, with Josh Cullen and Jeff Hendrick in midfield, and then Chidozie Ogbene, Callum Robinson and Jason Knight, the front three. I think it'll be Ogbene and Knight just behind Callum Robinson.
Yeah, potentially, although I suppose they have the ability to mix it up. Even in Luxembourg, Knight initially was 3-4-1-2, and then he ended up on the right side at one point as well. But yeah, I think
none of them are your Adamida number 9 going to lead the line, hold the ball up. There'll be a lot of rotation there, but again, I think it just underlines that Stephen Kenny is taking this as the serious test.
Yeah.
And it is a big opportunity where we'll see the experimentation on Tuesday night against Lithuania.
So this is the strongest team we probably could have picked, Nathan.
It is, absolutely. It's very close to the side that was there in the last couple of internationals in November. The only question marks were whether he would bring Darragh O'Shea back into the side, but I think it's probably a little bit too soon for Darragh O'Shea to come straight back in, and what he would do in the absence of Adam Idah. But Jason Knight made such an impression against Luxembourg. I think he had to start, and Jamie McGrath's absence from the squad has opened up an opportunity, and this could be the start of a run for Jason Knight that maybe in 5, 6, 7 years time he's one of those players who plays every single international. So you really do hope that he takes this opportunity and grabs it with both hands.
Like it could be argued there's a scenario whereby if even every other player not here was available, this is the team Kenny would pick. You know, Bazunu I still think is the number one keeper. McLean and Stevens, I think he will mix it up at times, similarly with Idah, Ogbene, Robinson, that equation. So I mean, it's very possibly his strongest side. You know, this is an 11 you could see play in a qualifier in the future. And I mean, this is where there's a degree of opportunity here. I mean, Belgium aren't going to be playing anything close to their strongest team, so this backs up the chat and the predictions.
Just on the Belgian side, so Simon Mignolet in goal, Denier, Boyata, Tiate, Selemakers, then Donker, Yuri Tielemans as expected captains the side, Torgan Hazard, De Ketelaere, who's a really exciting young player, Vanaken and Batshuayi is the starting 11 for Belgium. So the likes of Divock Origi among the substitutes for Belgium, and Christian Benteke is there as well. Adnan Januzaj, obviously a name that everyone will remember. Leandro Trossard among the substitutes. So listen, if you were to look at the two starting 11s, even with all the players that Belgium are missing, John, like that is a Belgian side that on paper is still stronger than this Ireland side.
And a strong midfield especially.
Oh well, Tielemans. Now Tielemans, I thought, had a very average Euros last year for Belgium in the middle of midfield and has been very inconsistent for Leicester this season. Now, he's got goals, but you just never know what you're going to get with him. He sort of sums up Leicester this season, but he's going to leave in the summer and he's going to go to a team that are playing Champions League football next season. If he goes for a fee, he'd be going for 30-40 million pounds. So you'd expect Roberto Martinez is looking for him to control this game, and he has the talent to absolutely control this game. So Ireland are going to get and have to get on top of him. So he'll be the key man, and everything in this game will rotate around him.
I was just looking through Stephen Kenny's first ever team against Bulgaria in September 2020 in the Nations League, which read Randolph, Doherty, Egan, Duffy, Stevens, McCarthy, Harahan, Hendrick, O'Dowda, Idah and Connolly. So a lot of changes.
And that was one of the issues for Stephen Kenny at the start. I remember last year for the Serbia match, which was the first real competitive game, first World Cup qualifier, there was 10 changes from Ireland's last international, which was obviously hit by COVID. So there's been a constant rotation for the first year and a bit, but now it does feel as though he has settled on a side, and he has certainly settled on a formation, and it may over the next 12 months develop again. There's definitely an opportunity for a Darragh O'Shea or an Andrew Omobamidele or Nathan Collins to force their way in to that back three over the next year.
Yeah, I think it's possible that Coleman won't play every game, and that there may be certain games where they play someone else on the right of the back three. John Egan isn't necessarily at home on the left of the back three either. He can play there because he's very capable, but there's possibility at times Egan could play on the right or even in the middle. So, but they're good options. They're not like dramatic reshuffles. I think the emergence of Ogbene was a big one, because it sort of solved an issue as regards pace, and I think that was the issue even last year. They were a bit slow and laboured at times. I mean, if you go back to the Luxembourg game last year, it was James Collins and Robinson up front, I think, and Robinson was probably feeling the effects of Serbia a couple of days earlier, and even just Robinson being fully fit and having a run of games has been a big one, because you assume today he's going to be the central striker, almost a false nine at times, but that's all well and good, but you sort of need a little bit of pace and energy running off you, and that's what he didn't have before. And I think between the summer and Jason Knight and then Ogbene briefly, but more so in the autumn, Ogbene has really played his way into it, and then given them a little bit of something to build around in the forward departments.
It's interesting as well, JD, just like this is a reality check for where we're at. You've Ogbene obviously playing in the third tier in England on the right, Jason Knight on the left, who's playing for a team struggling in the Championship. Robinson as our talisman at this stage, who's done so well for Ireland of late, but obviously at club level, hasn't had a great season and is just kind of hoping that his recent form will continue. And then in the middle, we'll say you've Hendrick, he's had a very difficult season, has had to come down a level, and Josh Cullen, who's playing in Belgium. And that's where we're at, and we're taking on a Belgian team that will still look at us and say, yeah, we should be better than them. And I think that kind of ties in with why the crowd have taken to this team as well, because it's not like this team is full of stars or anything like that, but they're playing as if they have sort of belief that they're better than they are maybe in terms of the sum of their parts. Stephen Kenny has inculcated belief in them, and despite the fact that they're basically trying to punch above their weight, even against a second string Belgian team. And I think the midfield is going to be fascinating there. Like Nathan mentioned Tielemans, but it's going to be a big day for Hendrick and Josh Cullen. This is not going to be straightforward, and often they will probably have times when they're a little bit overrun, and they're going to be key to our result today.
And Nathan, Will Keane on the bench, and also Scott Hogan, they might get a shot.
Yeah, who've been scoring goals at club level, and maybe can be that sort of the modern Irish striker who develops quite late, who's very experienced, who can be a focal point up front, and who can nick you 10 goals between the ages of 29 and 32, 33. I think Stephen Kenny would absolutely take that. I'd imagine we'll see Will Keane at some stage today. I think it's interesting that the level the Irish players mean, actually, there's a lot of depth in this Irish squad, because there's not a big drop off if certain players are missing, whereas I look at the rugby, which we've done depth charts on, and it's all very well been able to name a lot of players in one position, but if one of those lead guys is missing, there's a big dip to the next. Whereas that's not really the case here with the Republic of Ireland. There's backup in almost every position, because unfortunately there's not too many.
Who's
of
the biggest loss? Here's a question, right? If you said there's of that team there, and you hear the news that one player is injured, what's the biggest setback?
I think Callum Robinson right now, just for the energy he brings, or Josh Cullen, because is Howerhan the Josh Cullen replacement?
No, I think Cullen is the one where they don't necessarily have.
Like Conor Coventry is on the way, but isn't there yet.
Yeah.
Probably don't want to lose Queeveen Kelleher either.
Well, I mean in general, like at any particular point in time, if it proves the point this time that two keepers have ended up out through injury or illness, and you still have Queeveen Kelleher at the end of it. It's not bad, but I think Cullen probably is that one, that his role sort of is it's harder for anyone to come in and sort of replicate it, I think, but it does sort of back up Nathan's point that in most positions you can find a solution if someone's missed. Now, actually, just I think we were talking about the team previously. I think that point about Belgium being potentially overrunning Ireland in midfield that a couple of you have made, it probably makes it more likely it could be Jason Knight maybe as a one behind maybe Ogbene and Robinson. That Knight actually comes in and operates as that third man in midfield.
Okay.
That might be the case.
Okay, Nathan, 30 seconds before you go. Give us a verdict.
As I mentioned on yesterday's show, it's a Republic of Ireland international. I'll play it Dan McDonnell safe, 1-1.
Okay, Nathan, thanks so much for that.
John.
With Dan at the Aviva Stadium. We'll get Stuey Byrne's opinions on the team after 4 here on Off the Ball Saturday. 53106 for your text messages. We're building up, we're all excited. Republic of Ireland against Belgium kicks off at 5. Johnny Ward, Dan McDonnell and Stuey Byrne on the build-up. We're back after the news.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky, proud partner and supporter of the Republic of Ireland women's national football team.
This is News Talk.
This weekend, we're celebrating that we gave away €5,000 to communities in need, with thanks to the Tesco Community Fund. For more info, visit tescoireland.ie.
This is News Talk.
Hi, I'm Ken Doherty. For all van drivers and business owners, InsureMyVan.ie is Ireland's low-cost van and commercial insurance specialist. For high-quality van and all commercial insurances, call InsureMyVan.ie.
City Financial Marketing Group Limited, trading as InsureMyVan.ie, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Now at Power City, get free delivery and free recycling on selected Whirlpool condenser and heat pump dryers. For more information, go online to powercity.ie or call in store today.
We're funny creatures as humans. Impulsive, stubborn. We procrastinate for eternity and make decisions on a whim. Can we ever say with complete certainty where our choices are going to take us? Just remember, once in a while, we get it right.
You'll never take a wrong turn with Toyota, Ireland's best-selling car brand in 2021 and 2022. Toyota, built for a better world. Best-selling claim based on 2021 and 2022 most recently published monthly figures.
Eric is a Wi-Fi demon.
My speciality is causing Wi-Fi black spots. Emails from the bathroom, dropped video calls and that kind of thing. And you know, I once made a woman watch an entire box set under the stairs.
But with Virgin Media's new Wi-Fi guarantee, eliminating Wi-Fi black spots, Eric finds himself out of a job.
So I'm an influencer now. At least I still get to annoy people.
Get Wi-Fi in every part of every room with Virgin Media's new Wi-Fi guarantee. Virgin Media. Bring on amazing.
Subject to availability, the Wi-Fi guarantee service can be added for €5 extra a month. Minimum speed 30 megabits per second in every room using our smart Wi-Fi pods. Terms and conditions apply. See virginmedia.ie.
Hola, salut, diagwich. With over 4,000 lawyers and 87 offices around the world, including Madrid, Paris and Dublin, if you have a legal challenge that needs global experience and local know-how, we'd love to say hello. DLA Piper, your local global legal people.
I'm often asked, what kind of people join Two's company? Well, people who are fed up with online dating and the pub scene. They're single because they just haven't found exactly what they're looking for yet. We believe in quality over quantity. So if you're looking for that someone special, come in and talk to us today. See twoscompany.ie. You're in good company with Two's Company.
On the night of April 3rd, we'll all come together to fill out our census forms. And the information you provide will help show where essential services are needed in every part of the country. So on Sunday, April 3rd, be a part of Ireland's future. Be counted. Visit census.ie to find out more.
Looking to treat your mum to something personal this Mother's Day? You can now add your own special touch to the iconic Dunnes Stores e-gift card. Choose a photo of mum or select a snap of someone she loves, whether it's you, a family member or even her furry friend. Upload your photo and we'll add it to her e-gift card, which she can use online across fashion, food and homeware. Buy and send a personalised e-gift card at any time or schedule it to arrive on Mother's Day. Dunnes Stores, always better value. Terms and conditions, exclusions and minimum spend applies.
Hey Zig, did you know that schools all across Ireland are taking part in ESB Science Blast right now?
I know, Zag, and did you know that they're busy investigating all sorts of interesting questions like...
Why does our skin wrinkle in water?
Does the material of a hurley affect your puck out?
Will robots take over the world one day?
Agus Cunnus a Snovin Bod. ESB Science Blast, delivered by the RDS, empowers kids to investigate the science behind simple questions, just like these ones.
Discover more at esbscienceblast.com.
At AIB, we don't make technology for you to bank, we make it for you to live. So you can apply for a credit card through the AIB app or online and get it sent straight to your door. Banking to fit the way you live. AIB, we back doing. Lending criteria, terms and conditions apply. Over 18s only, subject to approval. And at Irish Banks PLC is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Looking for a new washing machine, tumble dryer, or both? At Harvey Norman, our specialist staff can help you choose the perfect appliance for your home. Banish bacteria, pollen and more with the Samsung 8kg washing machine with steam hygiene program and 5-year warranty. Now just $499. Or get the 2-in-1 eco-friendly Samsung washer dryer with 5-year warranty. Now $769, save €160. Shop in store or online at harveynorman.ie. Harvey Norman, your home appliance specialists.
Go! On 106 to 108 FM, on the News Talk app, powered by Go Loud and smart speakers. This is News Talk.
It's 4 o'clock. Good afternoon. An investigation's underway after a 27-year-old man was stabbed to death at a house in Carrigaline in County Cork this morning. The victim's father, who's in his 70s, has also attended Cork University Hospital with serious stab wounds. Irish Independent reporter Ralph Regal says a third man is being questioned by Gardaí.
Gardaí arrested a man in his 40s. Now, he was detained under Section 4 of the Criminal Justice Act. Gardaí can question him for up to 24 hours, and he is being questioned in connection with both apparent stabbing incidents.
The US President has described Russia's Vladimir Putin as a butcher for the destruction being caused in Ukraine. Joe Biden's been holding talks in Poland where he's praised the unity between NATO countries, calling it sacred. He also spoke to Ukrainian officials in Warsaw, including Foreign Minister Dmitry Kuleba, who says the president offered more security assurances from the US.
Ukrainian stamina and Western weapons, mostly American weapons, is the recipe for success on the battleground. Today, we did receive additional promises on how our defence cooperation will evolve.
Protests are continuing at ports across the UK over the sacking of 800 P&O ferry workers. One of its ships has been detained in Northern Ireland due to safety concerns after the company replaced staff with agency workers on lower pay. A protest in support of the sacked workers was also held at Dublin Port this afternoon, organised by the trade union SIPTU. Labour Party leader Ivana Bacik was amongst those who attended, says P&O ferries need to reverse their decision.
I met with many of those on the protest today who were very concerned, of course, that there could be ramifications here. And I think that is a real concern. But really the purpose of today was to show solidarity with those workers in Britain who have been given this appalling news. And what I'm calling on B&O is to simply reverse that decision and take back those whom they have so suddenly and shockingly sacked.
Finally, as Ireland and the rest of Europe prepare to push the clocks forward by an hour tonight, a leading MEP says the twice-yearly clock change has a negative effect on people's health. Europe enters summertime at 1 a.m. tomorrow morning. Ireland MEP Deirdre Clune says the twice-yearly clock change affects people's health.
Their biorhythm is put out. Some people can bounce back after a couple of days, others longer, and it can have detrimental effect on their health. There's also the issue of, from a mental well-being point of view, if you didn't change and you had more light in the evenings through the winter, then that's more beneficial, particularly those that are maybe confined to home, elderly people, that there's more light and there's more time for activity as well.
It's 4:02.
News Talk weather.
Thanks to Ryanair. Don't watch the Masters at home. Pack the clubs and watch it from Spain or Portugal.
Dry and generally fine today with long spells of spring sunshine and just some patchy cloud. The sunshine will be hazy at times with some mist out the coast. Highs of 15 to 19 degrees. Now you're up to date on News Talk.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky. All the football you love in one place. Across Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports.
And you're welcome back to Off the Ball Saturday here on News Talk. John Duggan with you 3 to 5. Football Saturday on Off the Ball, brought to you by Sky. Watch Man United versus Everton in the Women's Super League this Sunday, live only on Sky Sports. You can text us 53106, tweet us at Off the Ball, stream in the conversation, listen on News Talk, watch us on the digital and social channels for Periscope and Twitter at Off the Ball, YouTube, Facebook, and on the OTB Sports app. Building up to Ireland against Belgium with Stuey Byrne, the former four-time League of Ireland winner. And Johnny Ward is also in studio, the broadcaster and journalist. And at Lansdowne Road is Dan McDonnell of the Irish Independent. Just going through the team, here's Stuey. We got it there from Nathan just before the break. So it's Kelleher in goal, Coleman, Duffy and Egan in the back three, Doherty, Cullen, Hendrick and McLean across the middle, Ogbene and Knight and Robinson. What do you think?
Yeah, strong team, probably as strong a team as you could put out. Continuity is good as well. I think Steve will be very keen to kind of pick up where we've left off, in not only in terms of how we play, but also how the team is set up. And when you have that consistency of player, and we've no huge injury worries, which is great. And I think Stephen would have been very keen to pick up. I don't know. There seems to be this sort of sense that this is the next phase or whatever the case may be. But I think he certainly wants to now push on from the groundwork that he's done while he's been in the role. I think we have a baseline now, and not conceding in 4 games, and the results we picked up in the last 4 games have been hugely positive. He'll now look to kind of solidify that. I think the first 20 minutes huge for us, because I don't think we're the type of team who can pick it up halfway. I think we have to start well. We don't have that huge quality in terms of being able to kind of just suddenly shift and change. So we have to start games well, not just because it's important for the team, but also because of for the crowd as well, because we look to leverage that Lansdowne Road crowd as best we can. So in terms of personnel, we spoke about Cullen being that, for me anyway, just picking up what the guys were saying before the news there. He for me is that player that if he wasn't playing, I'd be a little bit concerned, because I think he does so much off the ball stuff that it's not very obvious here. That I think he keeps us ticking. He's such a clever player, not just when he has the ball, because his ball retention is excellent, and he really does get us playing. But off the ball, it's the stuff that he does in just protecting that back three or back five or whatever the case may be. He constantly plays with his head on his shoulder, looking left and right all the time, because he's always aware of what's behind him. And I think that's the reason why Stephen has put so much faith in him. And he's also allowed Hendrick then to be a little bit more adventurous, although I don't think Stephen will want Hendrick to be adventurous. I think we've pretty much nailed down the fact that we're playing this sort of 5-2-2 3 kind of a system with 2 wing backs, you know. But those two, Cullen and Hendrick, are our creativity centrally. They're both excellent, technically excellent players. They get on the ball, they make us play, and they also nail down. They kind of shore up that central area to give a little bit of protection to Coleman, Duffy, and Egan. But hugely important that, you know, I think Belgium will let us play. I think they'll stand off us. I think that, now I know it's a different personnel for Belgium, but anytime I've ever watched Belgium in recent years and even during the summer there, they're not really a pressing team. They're more of a ball retention team when they get the ball back. So it'll be hugely important for us that when we do lose the ball, that we're plenty of energy to get it back. But when we have the ball, I think Belgium will let us play. And again, important then that we move the ball well and that we kind of settle ourselves in, and just kind of, I don't know, pick it up where we left off, to be quite honest.
Just going through the Women's National League full times here. Shelbourne 7, Cork City 0 as a result. Sligo Rovers 1, Bohemians 3, Wexford Youths 3, Treaty United 0, Athlone Town 3, Galway 1, and Peamount United 3, DLR Waves 2. The under-17s women's team have lost 2-1 to Finland at Tallaght Stadium, and the under-17 males also lost 3-2 to Finland in Portugal earlier today. Josh Cullen, lads, has done well, hasn't he? Like, considering he only made 10 appearances for West Ham. Working well, Dan, with Vincent Kompany now at Anderlecht, and they're doing as well as you'd expect them to do in the Belgian league, near the top of it.
Yeah, like it's not a sort of massively original point to make, but clearly there are some players who thrive from going to a different football environment, and you know, Josh Cullen was always well regarded at West Ham, but never just always seemed to be sort of flirting with a breakthrough, but it never really happened. And then had various loans down the leagues that had sort of gone okay, but you can sort of see with his style of play, and in fairness, he actually covers a lot of ground now, and I think he's probably improved in some of the sort of physicality and stuff from when he was in the 21s perhaps, but yeah, it might have been hard for him to maybe get real opportunity and game time in that position, say at championship level. So by going to Belgium, going to Anderlecht, he's getting a sort of a sustained run of games at a good level in a sort of a different, I say a different culture, although Cullen made the point the other day that there's not a dramatic difference really, as much as people might think it, and they sort of they theorise that it must be dramatically different. He was actually making the point that really football in Belgium isn't dramatically different from what he's experienced, but certainly it's allowed him to build up a sort of a reservoir of experience. And I mean, he was someone who wasn't necessarily, I think Stephen Kenny left him out of his first squad, or he was on the brink of sort of, he was always on standby or in that sort of halfway house. And Kenny actually feels that it's his range of passing that's improved since he's gone to Belgium, and maybe that's just from, as Stuey would know this, it's just a pure experience of playing sort of 30, 40, 50 games, and prior to that he played a bit on loan, but he was sort of a little bit in and out, and he's a classic case of someone who's thrived from that experience, and as we sort of said before the ads, is now probably as first choice as anyone probably in that Ireland setup at the moment.
Identity is very important, especially for a player like Cullen, and the reason being, he's not a very physically imposing player. Okay, so you know,
is tidy unfair?
He's very tidy. No, that's a good remark. That's a compliment. Yeah, absolutely. Wes Hullen was tidy, you know, that kind of way. But I think identity for him as a player is important to give him confidence to flourish as a player. So the point I'm trying to make there is this. He may have felt, being at West Ham, he may not have put his best foot forward because he may have felt that his game wasn't going to suit the West Ham style of play. You're surrounded by midfielders that are 6'2", 6'1", and sometimes you can have an issue as a player, with your identity in this team. So therefore, he moves to Belgium, and all of a sudden there's a different outlook here. You know, he's been given the brief to go and play football. You know, size doesn't really matter here, son. Just go and play.
More time on the ball.
You've got more time on the ball, and that allows him to say, you know, he's comfortable now in this team. That allows him to kind of come out of his skin a little bit. And I'm not at all surprised that he's developed as a player. This issue of size, it's a real thing. And I know people might listen and go, can't be. But it is. Wes Houlihan couldn't get a game for Ireland because of his size. I firmly believe that. But hopefully that's changing now, and it's changing because of.
You even had Tielemans talking about it, I think, didn't you?
Well, it is. It's like I guess good-looking people do better in life. They get better jobs.
And we know obviously that you are, Johnny.
It's statistically proven. That's why I'm struggling in journalism. But like the midfield issue for me. Like we've had such a big deal about and Martin O'Neill brought up a few times, we don't have a Robbie Keane. We've never had anyone since Robbie Keane. Roy Keane was the player. Like Roy Keane was a generational talent. Stuey will know this as a midfielder. Like I can remember watching Ireland games where Roy Keane would literally run the game all alone, playing away from home against a hostile crowd. He was incredible. He was an incredible player. And ever since Roy Keane more or less was on the wane / retired, midfield has been like an issue for Ireland. And then we had managers that basically, when Glenn Whelan came in, like he was like a cow going up to the electric fence, like would just stop at halfway and wouldn't go any further. Do you know what I mean? It would just like halt. And then you had other midfielders who did no confidence on the ball. I went to watch Ireland when they played away in Georgia, and it was striking to see an Irish team totally outplayed by a team like Georgia, and just look at midfielders that should have been able to play, but like the likes of Conor Ronan, but for some reason didn't. They were actually running away from the ball. And we've had years and years and years. Roy Keane is in his 50s now. We've had nearly 20 years of Irish midfielders like basically either not performing for Ireland or being basically encouraged almost not to be on the ball. So we've been crying out for a player to grasp the nettle. And I think Cullen, as much as he's never going to be Roy Keane, he's done very well. And it's still an issue going forward where I think we need better players. Like Cullen and Hendrick are grand, but we need really like strong midfielders. You're looking at maybe the likes of Conor Coventry stepping up, but he's playing for MK Dons at the moment. And it's been a really, really big problem for us. And like the lads have mentioned some of the other players, Conor Ronan has done okay for Ireland. James McCarthy, it looks like his career may be practically over for Ireland. So they're just players that it hasn't worked out for, and Cullen has been an unlikely hero in that regard.
You got to give Seamus Power a huge amount of credit when you get the liberation of being able to book your place in the Masters. He's now into the quarterfinals of the WGC match play, 4-3 win over Tyrrell Hatton, so we'll see who he faces in the match play. Just go through the scores there actually in the last 16. So Scotty Scheffler 1 up on Billy Horschel through 16, Dustin Johnson 2 up on Richard Bland through 14, Brooks Koepka leading John Ram 1 up through 14, Adam Scott 2 up on Kevin Kisner through 13, Will Zalatoris 2 up on Kevin Na through 12, Corey Connors 3 up on Takumi Kanaya after 11, and Colin Morikawa trails Abraham Answer 6 down through 11, so Answer's had to go through to the last 8. We had a big shock winner of the Lincoln at Doncaster, Johan, at 28-1, trained by Mick Shannon, ridden by Sylvester de Souza. And we've gone through the soccer games there as well. And some interesting text here in 53106. Here's my ode to Johnny Ward in honour of his match programme contribution today. Johnny Ward, he's a League of Ireland fan. Johnny Ward, he's been to matches in Azerbaijan. Johnny Ward, famous for a premature prediction. Johnny Ward, the league is his addiction.
That's not bad.
Very good.
I told my brother to send it in a bit later, but yeah, I'm very delighted with that, actually. Thanks for that. I was in Azerbaijan. Dan was in Azerbaijan. Where's the most exotic place you've played, Stuey?
Exotic place? Oh, God.
Whereas with me, Dan and I'd be like, had a few pints or actually worked in the...
Johnny's addicted to the word exotic. I mean, exotic makes it sound sun-kissed. Don't be afraid to pick somewhere that was a little bit more miserable and downtrodden as well. I think that's what he really means. The more offbeat, the most sort of off the beaten track place you play.
I'll tell you where the most offbeat. Samara in Russia.
Samara.
My God. So Samara, we had to fly to London to Moscow to Samara. You're thinking when you get to Moscow, this is only an hour away. It was another 3-hour flight to Samara.
Yeah.
And we land and we a pretty bleak place, I have to say. And the first we got to the hotel in the middle of nowhere, and first thing we do, look, let's go for a walk, stretch the legs, and we walked outside as a group of players. First thing I saw was I'd say she was about a 16-year-old girl in a Shell tracksuit. You know the old Shell tracksuits? You know the back from the 80s? You're a bit of an 80s fan, John.
Yeah.
On a horse, drinking a can of beer.
Okay.
Yeah, it was just like being in Finglas South or something like that. But it was just trotting by us, and I.
Did you get a good result that time as well?
We bet them, Salvatore. We knocked them out.
Yeah, it was Pats, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a Pats. Yeah. Now to be honest, we got fairly bashed. But
Jeff Kenna was it?
Jeff Kenna was, yeah.
It's mad, yeah.
It was, yeah.
I was in Samara for the World Cup a couple of years ago, and I actually, I think I messaged a couple of the players that were in that squad because, I don't know, did you have some... was there some night out after the game or something? I'm trying to think. Or I don't know. Do you have any recollections of the aftermath? But there was certainly. It was a fairly run-down place, even for the World Cup when it was done up. But I don't have any memories of the trip itself. Was there some sports bar where everyone went to afterwards or something like that?
Stewie's body language, like Dan, if you could only see his face here, he's made about 17 expressions since you actually started the sentence.
Go on, Stewie. Then
land the plane there. No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't be involved in those nights out. The lads went out to a sports bar. They did actually, yeah.
I think a load of them had signed the wall or something like that.
That's right.
And I think I ended up sort of finding the wall that they'd signed or something like that. So yeah, you still left your mark in Samara, whatever, all these years later on.
That's right, yeah. But
it's where the rocket was built for Yuri Gagarin to get into space.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
It's funny that with this whole war that's going on and everything, like it's I've been to Kiev, I've been to Minsk, in Belarus. I remember being there probably 8 or 9 years after Chernobyl had happened, and the place was deserted. Like there was no one in the city at all. Like we had to bring our own food. We couldn't eat the food that was there in the hotel. I mean, the hotel people were just delighted for us to be there. They were gorgeous people, but you could just see the devastation. I remember going for a walk through the city of Minsk. Just place there's no one around. Like it was so eerie. And but I actually, that's one thing you kind of do remember from your footballing career is all these places you do get to go to. It's privilege. We're privileged to do it, and we would
go there on your holidays, are you?
No, when we were having a conversation off air, and you talked about just experience of places and the different culture they have, and we all have one common denominator. We all love football. We all
it's a global religion.
It's this roundy thing. Just brings everybody
JD
together.
is right though. It's nearly the only sport that pretty much applies everywhere.
Well, if you meet anybody from any nationality and you go in wherever you are, in a coffee shop or in a bar, you can strike up a conversation.
It's the language we all understand.
You can strike up a conversation.
And we did.
Who do you support?
Yeah,
the first thing.
Dan and I had a piece with Ollie Cahill on our podcast during the week, and he had to remind us that Shells played Deportivo, La Coruña, and Stuey Byrne was man marking Valeron, and you're just you had some memories
Oh yeah, I mean,
did you get his jersey actually?
No, I didn't actually. I got the Silva's jersey, the Brazilian, the captain. Okay. Yeah, I probably should. I was effectively under his jersey for the two games.
To man mark Valeron and keep Deportivo scoreless for was it an hour into the second leg?
It was an hour into the second leg.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
When you think
probably
about
the better chance.
We've lived colourful lives, JD, but we can never say we man marked Valeron.
Well, life isn't over yet.
Yeah, maybe we'll meet him in a booze or something.
Haunt him for the night. I mean, I'm not sure it's the same experience.
Anybody watching Stewie's been doing a great thing. He's wearing the Dynamo Kiev jersey today. Would you have kept many jerseys? Would you swap any jerseys? Would you keep it? Would you have kept a collection?
I do keep them. Yeah, I do. I want to do something with this one, to be quite honest. So I think I'd like to try and auction it off maybe, and try and get a few bob together for the. But that's something that I'll be doing in the near future. But I would have kept jerseys, yeah. Not too many, but I do keep them. I don't put them on display.
Yeah, no, they're not in frames when you walk into the living room. The first thing they see.
So I'd like to do something with them. I really would. I don't know whether maybe I should. I don't know, but I would like to do something with them. It seems like an awful waste. I'd like someone to appreciate them more than I would. I not that I don't appreciate them. They just. I'm a memories person. I just love just remembering the different the different experiences that I would have had. But this one is. This is kind of the situation that's happening in Ukraine is very upsetting at the moment. Just something that we talk about football being this icebreaker or this one language that we can all that we can all speak. And you look at Ukraine, they can't even play football. Like it's all completely stopped. I
have to say, like, as a nation, we've done very well. I mean, I was at Longford Town Go United last night, and I think there were like 20 Ukrainians who were basically brought to the game as kind of guests of Longford Town. And at home, where I'm from in East Galway, Killeen would have been a local national school, and you may have seen on TV that the local national school fell into disrepair, and there weren't enough. As you know, many schools around the country don't have the kids that they used to have anymore, so the school closed down, and within a few weeks, like, the people of Newbridge rallied around to turn the school into basically a place to welcome refugees from Ukraine. And I think Irish people have done very well. They've responded well to this, and hopefully we'll see League of Ireland teams sort of reach out to Ukrainians, because a lot of them are so football mad, and who knows how long they'll be here. Bring them to games and make them feel at home.
Radobarg, if I pronounced that correctly, 9-2 favourite, has won the Irish Lincolnshire at the Curragh on day one of the flat, beating Comfort Line, Star Harbour and Casanova. What
a day to be at the Curragh, JD.
Yeah, but we'd rather obviously be on the radio here in News Talk.
I'm not sure anyone would want to be indoors today, but it's an interesting start for the Curragh. It's been obviously a tough few years for it, but couldn't have asked for a better day, and a short price winner of the Lincoln as well.
53106, lads, did you all see Kevin Zeffie's Rabona attempt the other night for the under-17s? Looks like he could be a real player for us, although of course we need to be wary of putting too much expectation on his young shoulders. Maybe Dan could give some insight into how the team performed overall that night. From Marty Kelly in Ljubljana in Slovenia, Dan.
Yeah, they did well in that game. I mean, Zeffie, I think, divides opinion too as well. I mean, I know that clip was extraordinary sort of thing, and I watched the game and you always felt that he was going to be a threat, but I know some people would feel as well that maybe at times there wasn't quite the end product there just to match some of the quality of the build-up play, but you can see why there's an excitement around them. But clearly, obviously, there's a balance. I mean,
see the young Cork City lad scored twice today.
Well, I mean, more to the point, unfortunately, they lost to Finland today, which is very disappointing. It doesn't really matter who scored twice. I mean, okay, it's not all about results; it's about development. But I actually thought they played quite well. They started very poorly against Portugal, and then sort of from the sort of 30th minute till the 80th minute performed really well. And you'd be hoping they'd follow up against Finland, and they haven't done so. So that's a small bit disappointing, because that under-17 age group now is probably the first age group that they're all of them really aren't able to go to the UK. So you have Zeffie involved, who's gone to Italy, and Heffernan, who's on loan at AC Milan. And I think defensively they've struggled across the two games. It does appear to be an issue there. So you have to sort of be very wary of the hype at this stage. I mean, it does appear that the under-19 team that lost to England on Wednesday, they lost 3-1. I think that game was played in Walsall, but everyone who was there very optimistic about the quality of the Irish play in that game.
Some goal from James Abankwah on his left foot.
Yeah, Abankwah scored, but I think the general feeling was they played very well, and were very unlucky that Johnny Kenny, who went from Sligo to Celtic over the winter, he was stretchered off, and Sinclair Armstrong, who's at ex-Shamrock Rovers now, went to QP Orphan there. He also went off injured, and there's a real feeling there's talent in that group. So, but it's a funny one with that. I mean, I understand the fuss on Zeffie, it's justified, but the interest is justified given where he is. But sometimes with those age group teams, it's not necessarily the outstanding player. Like I would have watched that Ireland team that played in England a couple of years ago, that controversy with the penalty shootout where Jimmy Corcoran got sent off in the shootout, and I mean, Troy Parrott played that day, Adam Ida would have been involved, Nathan Collins, like Jason Knight was in that squad and would have been probably under the radar, and you could argue now he's the closest to the first choice of any of them. So it just goes to show, like, the other players in that 17s group who actually over time come to the fore.
Dan, were you at the game the other night, the 19s?
No, that was in England. No,
where did the Banquet play? Do you mind me asking?
I believe he was playing it right back. I think that's where he played. Yeah.
I think that kid is going to end up being a midfielder, centre midfielder.
Wow,
yeah. That's interesting. Why do you say that, Stuey?
I just from watching him play.
Because he hasn't looked amazing on the ball to me, no.
No, I think he
athletically.
Just athletically, dynamically, and I think he has that. He just has that. I think he has it in his locker, and I would watch the space for him. We're
like Stuey,
having the conversation about centre midfielders. That kid for me will definitely move up into being a centre midfielder.
The athletic build of him, JD, for the size, for his age, is unbelievable. Like the growing that he has to do. And he's played under some really good managers already in Ireland. And I do mention Alex Murphy because he's a centre-back who's going to be linked to a move away as well, and probably will get a move away this year. He's left-footed, and I wouldn't be amazed if Alex Murphy and Abankwah ended up playing for Ireland together at some level. But Abankwah, I mean, I was surprised, I have to say, at the quality of his goal. Like, it was a left-footed strike.
I think he can play, Johnny. I think the problem is because he's playing as a defender now, he doesn't feel maybe that he can express himself as much, but I think in time it will come with development, and the move to Udinese I think it will bring him on hugely. What I would put my hat on it, he'll be a centre midfielder.
Okay, we've got to take a break, and we've got to be back with Stuey, Byrne, Johnny Ward and Dan McDonnell shortly, ahead of the Ireland-Belgium game, which kicks off at 5 o'clock. Just to let you know, the Irish team is in. So Callagher in goal with Coleman, Egan and Duffy across the back three. And then we have Doherty, Cullen, Hendrick and McLean, Ogbene, Knight and Robinson. It's a pretty strong team for Stephen Kenny to pick this afternoon. Then Donker, Tielemans, Thorgan Hazard in the Belgian team today. But no Lukaku, no De Bruyne for the match, which kicks off at 5. We haven't beaten Belgium since 1966. That might change this evening. Off the Ball Saturday on News Talk is back after this. Come back to Off the Ball Saturday here on News Talk. John Duggan with you 3 to 5. You can text us 53106, tweet us at Off the Ball. We're streaming the conversation. Listen on News Talk. Watch us on the digital and social channels for Periscope and Twitter at Off the Ball, YouTube, Facebook and on the OTB Sports app. Remember, our coverage on Off the Ball brought to you by Sky. Watch Man United versus Everton in the Women's Super League this Sunday, live only on Sky Sports. 27 minutes to kick off at the Aviva Stadium. Republic of Ireland against Belgium. Dan McDonnell is there for us from the Irish Independent. Stuey Byrne, the former Shelbourne League winner, and Johnny Ward also in studio. Dan, do you think the World Cup will be poorer now without Italy?
Yeah, like I think so. I mean, you'll miss the anthem for starters. Yeah, like it's always one of those things. Like, you have a great shock, and it's a terrific story for North Macedonia, and you're really happy for them. And I think that gives great encouragement to everyone. Even there's an argument, even it shows the benefits of the Nations Leagues for building up a country like that who qualified for the Euros through that. But the flip side, of course, is that you would have loved to sit down. Well, actually, you wouldn't have been able to with Ireland, Lithuania, but to watch Portugal, Italy on Tuesday and have that clash. It's a curious one. I mean, for a country of that size, sort of football history, to miss 2 World Cups in a row and win the Euros in between, it's a really bizarre story. And I suppose, you associate, I suppose, the World Cup. You think of those sort of big clashes between traditional nations. So it's a shame they're not there. But in saying that, it probably shows it's so difficult still through the European route to get to the World Cup in its current standpoint. It's a considerable achievement. I mean, if you think of poor old North Macedonia, but they've had an amazing qualifying campaign. They've finished second. I think they knocked out. I was trying to think that they finished ahead of Romania. I'm trying to think who they pushed out of it. But anyway, they finished second in qualifying, and they did beat Germany along the way. You go and you win away in Italy, and you still have to go and win away in Portugal to try and get to the finals.
The mad thing on that, Dan, is that Portugal really rode their luck against Turkey, because they were 2-0 up, but had chances, but were coughing up chances. Turkey came right back into the game. We're given a penalty then, and it was 6 minutes left. Blazed the penalty over. If it had been 2-2, I think Portugal
are done.
Yeah, defensively they were very poor. Like, Ronaldo looked very frustrated again at times in the game. Great goal by Jota, but Portugal were on the ropes, as they showed in our group. I thought Serbia were definitely a better team than them, and they really rode their luck. But I mean, ultimately Italy probably decided Qatar is a joke and we don't want to be there.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about it is it's like the result is what happened, and they have to be judged by it. I sort of was trying to flick between the games because it was an amazing night of football, really. There was every game had something, obviously the biggest thing you could possibly have riding on it. I mean, the World Cup playoffs are generally so tense, and this format now where it's 90 minutes and you're done, as opposed to, say, a 2-legged one, as it would have been back against France back in the day and so on. Like Italy still had something like 31 shots.
They don't have a cutting edge anymore.
They just couldn't score. But I think you could see them getting more frustrated as it went along, because probably mentally they were gearing up for Portugal on Tuesday too, and it cost them. I mean, there was this amazing shot of Mancini at the end when they scored. He was just haunted. I mean, it's actually a strike, and I saw Kevin Byrne, who works in the Sun, put it up. The Macedonia goal was eerily similar to that Luxembourg goal here a year ago, where it's sort of a second ball, the player takes control and has a pop, and he just catches it perfectly. And in Italy, it's just a nightmare unfolding, because you just couldn't see them conceding in any scenario, and they did.
Gareth Bale, I thought, deserved a lot of credit the other night, lads.
Yeah, I saw a few people.
Marca were disgraced what they did about him and the Parasite. That was just awful.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what's going on with Real, but I think Gavin Cooney tweeted during the week that international football is just so compelling at times now compared to the club game, and that wasn't the way it was. But like, if you get drama like the other night with those games, it was brilliant to watch. And Dan mentions the national anthem of Italy, like the Welsh national anthem beforehand. I don't think they played any music. They just had the crowd billing it out, and like, it literally did get them going. And Bale's goal, like, unbelievable. It's I have to say, like, I've never had less interest in the World Cup, but the playoffs were great.
Will you welcome Euro 2028 to these shores, Stuey?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if it's done in conjunction with the other countries. I think the days of one country hosting a competition of that nature just is gone. This idea of it's funny you should mention Qatar, like just building these stadiums.
It's pathetic, and it's so wrong.
It's awful. It is so wrong. Yeah, and
like, say, Stuey, if you, and we spoke about this before, and sorry to interrupt you,
go ahead.
But if we can, like, we're pathetically badly served by football stadia in this country, whereas we don't have any, right? So on the island of Ireland, basically you have Windsor Park, and we're effectively sort of tenants in the Aviva Stadium, and then we're looking at Croke Park, which itself might have Gaelic games around that time of the Euros, and then you're left with Tala. That's where we're at. So, like, if we could, as you say, Qatar is a joke, but if we could have a legacy stadium, like, for example, Casement Park, that would finally get built, ironically for the foreign game that would have had you sacked, like, from the GA back in the day. But Northern Ireland, and it was interesting, Stuey, that, like, I'm just looking at this yesterday when the IFA issued a statement Friday. We had an urgent meeting with the Economy Minister himself, a DUP Minister, ironically enough, this morning, where he clarified his comments and reaffirmed his commitment to work with us. We are satisfied with this and look forward to contributing to an exciting bid. Like, whatever your politics are, whether you're indifferent to United Ireland, whether you want a United Ireland, whatever your politics are, whether you have no politics or any politics, I would genuinely love for Northern Ireland to have a role in this, because otherwise it doesn't feel right.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree with that as well. And it's the football stadium thing is, for me, is an issue, I think. You mentioned that we are tenants in Lansdowne Road, tenants to the RFU. Football stadiums are depleted here, and there seems to be, I don't know whether there's some sort of a fear or an inability to galvanise a movement to kind of to look at stadium and try to. It's amazing how when you walk around the city. I work in the city centre, and they can literally knock buildings down and rebuild them in the space of 2 years. It's incredible what they can do, construction wise. Yet for some reason we can't seem to be able to
look at Finn Park and Drogheda and place like this, or sorry, Stranorder and Drogheda. It's like Dalymount might happen, but like, it just takes years.
It's just bizarre. It really is bizarre. Like, so obviously, whatever way we lobby government, whatever the mechanism is there that the developers seem to be able to do, we certainly need to take a leaf out of their book. And I do think there's scope in this country, to have some sort of a 10-year amnesty on I don't know, corporation tax or whatever, to allow stadiums to either be upgraded or to be built. And I'm talking conservatively here. Tala, when Tala is completed, it'll be 10,000 seater.
Yeah,
you know,
all behind the goal.
Perfect, absolutely perfect. I've been again just going back to being around Europe, being to grounds around Europe where I feel they've gotten it right. You look at Rosenborg, 20,000 seater stadium. Easter Road, Hibs, 20,000 seater stadium. Perfect. No need for any more. And these can be all multi-purpose. They now build stadiums as a multi-purpose.
But it's like if you had Limerick playing at Thomond Park.
Yeah, well,
26,000 people.
Yeah, but like we are absolutely scandalously bad with stadia in this country. Like Tala is put forward in the League of Ireland as like Tala in England would be like a 4th tier stadium, if even. And it's like you look at some of the Gaelic Games grounds, like they're totally antiquated. And Stewie's on about like it's not a stadium; it should be like a modern facility. I even spoke to a guy out cycling this morning, JD, about the Spurs Stadium, and he was speaking about the way that this atmosphere has worked. Like it's modern, and like for there's so much money in this country, one of the wealthiest countries in the world, and our stadia, even like in Gaelic Games, like you go around the country, fair enough, Páirc Uí Chaoimh is grand, but like a lot of them are absolute, like they're crap, and in football it's worse, and I don't know what it is, but like we're living 50 years in the past and that, and it's embarrassing how bad we are on the football front, that we basically have nothing of our own to offer to this bid, and it's really, really sad. And even Dalymount, like they're on about this is going to cost something like 36 million, and that was before inflation, and this is for 6,000 seats. 6,000 seats, like in the league, in the Vauxhall Conference, that would be run of the mill.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think it comes back to that whole thought process that the game is not an industry here yet, or it's not considered to be an industry. Or I had a very good conversation with somebody recently about something similar, how they went about changing not only the government's viewpoint towards the arts, okay, but people's viewpoints towards the arts. So when you look at the arts in this country, it went from employing something like 4,000 people to 16,000 people permanently. So what they did was they had to lobby government to give, to look at this as being a way of giving employment. It's no, people that work in the arts, they're not just these, people going around in 20-year-old jumpers looking like they need a good meal.
Yeah.
It's giving them full-time employment.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing.
Well, it's the same with the horse racing industry.
And
16,000 people in the horse racing industry, and they get about between 70 and 90 million a year.
Which is like that's based on betting money that is entirely anachronistic in terms of what's bet on, because like horse racing is an increasingly small part of the pie. Where does the money that's bet on football, which is massive, where does that go? And as Stuey says, we could build an industry out of having we could build so much employment out of having a football industry in this country. And I know people give out like we can have Euro 2028. It doesn't matter if like our League of Ireland facilities are shit. Like we can still have an industry in this country which will create employment if the government grasps it.
And you also brought up
more bad language.
You also brought up the point. We like whether we like it or not, and we don't seem to want to admit this. We are going through Celtic Tiger Part 2, and we've been going through it for the last 5 or 6 years. The economy is absolutely thriving. Yet for some reason, we're still sort of I'm grand. There seems to be this fear. Knock on the door of government, get in there and say, listen, you need to divvy out the money a little bit more, because before inflation came in and before this war started, the economy was expected to grow by something like 12%.
Dan, you've been listening there. You want to chip in?
Yeah, well, no, I mean, I echo a lot of the points. I mean, to go back to the general point of the bid, to me, it doesn't do much for me. I would have spoke to Joe about this thing on Wednesday. People know my views on it, really. I think it's a waste of time unless there's some kind of legacy attached to it. I mean, what I would say is, I think that one of the legacy of the Oireachtas hearings and all of that sort of controversy a couple of years ago, that I think it did bring home the point that for some politicians, they understand there's some political capital in latching onto football, that there's a community out there who feel they haven't been represented for years, and you see they're a lot more conscious of latching on to announcements, even like the Euros one. They are conscious of the attitude towards facilities and stadiums, and I don't think it's going to be tolerated to just sort of cruise along with this big bid and sort of ignore the other stuff. I think there's a lot of scrutiny and attention on the government relationship and spending on football in the coming years. The betting tax is the right point to mention. I think that's probably the way they're going to look at it. It's an obvious way potentially to direct income into the sport without necessarily finding money from elsewhere. It's illogical to some degree that the money that goes to the horse and greyhound industry from the betting tax, when football is, rightly or wrongly, is a very popular sport for people to bet on, and there can be some good to come from that spend towards sort of football projects. I think that will happen, I think, in some shape or form.
Dan, we got to let you go. So, how do you see it going?
Well, I mean, it's got to be a 1-1 draw, Dan.
Nathan said it. Dan McDonnell on defence prediction of 1-1. I mean, that is my prediction. I'm going to go for a 1-1. Yeah,
I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw as well, JD. What are you going for?
Thanks, Dan. Speak soon.
Cheers, lads.
We still have to wrap up the show here, lads. But Stuey, you got a song out, or?
I have a song. I was going to sing right now first.
No. We have enough from programme notes today. That's enough entertainment.
No,
not sure how to take that.
going back,
new record out.
Going back to no, it's not. No, it's
the old record.
It's a song that's been sitting up on SoundCloud for over a year now.
What's it called?
It's called "Are We at War?"
Well, obviously we are.
Ironically enough, and my obsession with war and football. But I wrote this song a couple of years ago, actually, just off the back of what I saw was, a lot of fracturedness in the world. Donald Trump being president of the United States, and just all the different inequalities that was out there. So I wrote this song, "Are We at War?" And I don't tend to release things anymore. I just kind of just put them out there, and if people find them, they find them.
I've listened to Stuey at Alan Cawley had a live show there a few months ago. When was that actually? It's like the pandemic. I don't know when anything was. Like, when was that?
About 5 years ago.
5 years ago, yeah.
Sugar Club. No, it was last November, wasn't it?
Yeah, and Stuey was very, very good. Like, so I think we need more of that. I think we need more of footballers who, like Ollie Cal plays a guitar, he was telling us now, so.
He picked it up, has he?
Yeah,
I think I inspired Ollie, did I?
There you go, yeah. And there was one other player as well from that team, but... Or was it the Sean Dillon plays something as well? So.
Oh, I remember Sean did actually play, yeah.
Imagine Paul Doolan as you were all like, getting into a sing-song and playing a guitar.
Paul Doolan wouldn't be one for that now.
Offaly have been relegated in the hurling back to Division 2. Antrim 224, Offaly 217. An important result from this afternoon. Nathan, you still there at the Aviva?
Yeah, still here, John. We're just over 10 minutes away from kick-off. Players just gone back in the tunnel, so I'd imagine they'll be out over the next little while. And slowly but surely filling up.
Are you observing anything out there?
No, Ireland have lovely training tops is the main thing I observed. I was just commenting though that if this game does, after 12, 13 minutes, start to move into that more friendly cycle of a lot of possession but not a lot of chances, that if they've any sense in the stadium, what they'll put up is a close-up of Thierry Henry in the dugout, which I suspect might ignite the stadium.
Was it Martinez was saying that he feels that we've forgiven him, or was that what was said?
I think it was more that we should forgive him. That
we haven't.
It's quite depressing to think it's 13 years ago now at the stage that happened, and he is still very much public enemy number one. He's a hard man to dislike in some ways, but he did enough to hurt us that I think we can all still get there.
I can still never understand the Richard Dunn, sitting beside Richard Dunn.
No, it was like, as much as you look at what Suarez did, handing the ball on the line, for some football people and some football nationalities, do whatever it takes to win the game. I personally, I wouldn't have had it in me to do that Thierry Henry and ball. Fair enough. But you don't then sit down almost like in a sort of a unity with Richard Dunn and talk nonsense afterwards and like bemoan what happened, because that's where he became like public enemy number one for me. It was like, well, you deal with it, and you dealt with it in a bad way, like. And I've never liked him since.
It was his guilty conscience, wasn't it? But I think he kind of played Richard a little bit. And Scass, Richard Dunn, of all the people you would expect wouldn't have it. You would have thought Richard Dunn.
I don't think Richard fully grasped the enormity of what had just happened. But Stuey, you're the only player amongst us. Any player I've spoke to said that they would have done the exact same thing as Thierry Henry.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I mean, I think I think they were emotionally exhausted, but
not Paolo Di Canio maybe, because like he had a thing where no, I give the ball back to referee if I see something wrong.
He pushed a referee.
He did on that. Who was the referee?
Paul Alcock, was it?
Paul Alcock.
Nathan might correct me, but
yeah, I think you're right, John. Yeah.
Where were you, Johnny, that night, Henri?
Jesus, where did I watch that? Somewhere in town. I can't really remember.
I was in the Oval Bar. Beside Thomas Reed's there on Dane Street.
Yeah, nice bar.
Where were you? You remember where you were?
I can't remember. No, I was at home. I think I was at home.
Nathan was on Today FM, if I remember at the time.
I was on in the Stade de France. Yeah, it was one of the more interesting post-match mix zones when the players come out. Generally, players don't like to say too much. I've never seen anger like it, because I think while Richard Dunn may have been happy to sit with Thierry Henry on the pitch, by the time they got into the dressing room, had seen a dozen replays. There were a lot of words that weren't really we could put on breakfast radio the following morning, because Robbie Keane, Kevin Kilbane got angry about it.
Well, were we angry about Diego Maradona in the hand of God? So I guess
people celebrate that.
Yeah, so you got to kind of look at it that way as well. It wouldn't be for me, but
the best thing ever.
Yeah.
Come on.
He beat England.
I don't know how you deal with that tannoy, Nathan. I'm struggling here, to be honest.
Well, I was just talking to one of the technical people here, and in fairness, it's quiet until about half an hour beforehand. But it makes, as you can tell, pre-match almost impossible. And the Belgian supporters are the exact same. And you don't need it. Actually, just start the song and let the people take it away from there on. I understand the criticism that was there of the rugby last week, but this trying to force atmosphere on us all the time. I go to Premier League matches every week, and the tannoy is low. You go to Anfield, they're playing songs, they're playing Liverpool music, but it's quite low until You'll Never Walk Alone starts. And then even with You'll Never Walk Alone, they'll pull it down to let the crowd take over. And that's what you want. But this thing of we must make as much noise as possible, I really don't get it.
That's why I'm sitting where I am, Nathan. Do you realise this is probably the first Ireland game where we haven't been together for probably 2.5 years? How you feeling about that?
What we've gone through, Stuey, over the last 2 years. We were here, it was this weekend last year, wasn't it? The Luxembourg game, where I think we were one of the very few in the stadium when Ireland got beaten. To be honest, I didn't think we'd be sitting here a year on with Stephen Kenny selling out the Aviva for a friendly, with Ireland having failed to qualify for the World Cup. But hey, there's a lot of strange stuff going on right now.
Enjoy, Nathan.
Cheers, John.
Nathan Murphy there. Johnny Collish, Ireland, Belgium.
1-1.
Stewie, say something different, will you?
1-0 Ireland.
That'd be great.
Okay.
I have a small fear that we'll be a bit overrun the first half. As Stewie says, it's important we start well.
Well, listeners out there, if you're going to check out the game, enjoy it. We'll have all the reaction on OTB tomorrow. Thanks, Johnny. Thanks, Stewie. Thanks
all the best, John.
And don't forget, Off the Ball back between 1 and 7 tomorrow. We're going to be across the national leagues. Taggy Fogarty is at the hurling semi-final between Wexford and Waterford. Paul Finlay at Monaghan against the Dubs. Colin Boyle reporting on Mayo versus Kildare. We'll also bring you the Sunday paper review with Shane Keegan and Timmy McCarthy, a feature interview with Aoife Hall. We'll also look back on the Republic of Ireland against Belgium, that friendly international kicking off in a few minutes' time, with Simon Cox and Gavin Cooney reviewing that. Be sure to join us tomorrow then for some great conversation. If you missed any of the Saturday panel on sporting retirements with Tony O'Gregan, Niall O'Toole and Dr. Olivia Hurley, or OTB Football Saturday with Stuey Byrne, Dan McDonnell and Johnny Ward, you'll be able to find the podcasts of our content on the OTB Sports app. Search OTB Sports in your app store to download the app for iOS and Android, or listen back wherever you get your pods. Thanks so much for listening this afternoon. We'll speak tomorrow. Enjoy Ireland, Belgium. Bye-bye.